Hello and welcome to the Fear Free Human Show. I'm super excited to be here with you today. My name is Zen Cryer DeBrook, and I am here to discuss with you how to literally become a fear free human. What does that look like? Everybody's like, well, we need fear. No, we don't. You have tiger fear, like physical fear that we get into, and then you have mental fear that's torturing you every single day. And the way that we go about doing this, and by the way, this is a coaching. So if you would like some coaching, you will know how to go and get the coaching because you will be a student and you can go to the live event inside of the Circle app that we have, the Fear Free Human Collective, and that's how you can get your coaching. Or you're welcome to go through the live event link in the emails, like the notifications that get sent out. Anyhow, why this is so important is because mental fear is the thing that's driving the planet into destruction. Mental fear is at the bottom of all of the things that we all hate and do not want to be a part of. It is the thing that is driving us in our politics and being pushed and thrust upon us in our medical institutions. It's with our environment, the environment itself, the way that we're arguing about everything. And let's be really honest. What we really all want is to live on a safe planet that's healthy, where our children and ourselves can thrive, and everybody is able to be taken care of in a particular way. Now, in a particular way that's different for different people. I myself, am not interested in having a private jet. Other people are. I don't like to have responsibility for things like that. So but other people do. And so there's a huge gamut of what that looks like. I do know that if you take away the ability for people to be able to reach for something greater than they already have, you really do put a cap on their ability to be happy, because we are born that way. It's called dopamine in the brain, and our dopamine centers are used to go and out and want to achieve something greater than where we are. That's really what dopamine's about. They call it the pleasure chemical, but it's really not the chemical that causes pleasure. It's a chemical that causes striving, and it is in the striving, the healthy striving in our lives, that we find accomplishment and joy, and we feel good about ourselves, and our self-esteem comes from that. There's all kinds of things that are super healthy about that. So what's happening is that the mental fears are keeping us distracted from what it is that we truly want to be doing. And the mental fears, I want to share with you today where they come from while we're waiting to see if somebody wants to get some coaching today. So I want to talk to you about where we come from. The actual personality of you, I believe, if you've had any children, if any of you have had any children or been around children, you know that they're born and they're very different. It's not like you have a child and it comes out and we mold it. It comes out pretty well formed with its personality. And then from there, it interacts with the world with its personality, and it creates its own mental construct of the world. That's basically how it goes. So between the ages of 0 and 7, you've probably heard me say this ad nauseum, as well as other people, we collect our belief system for how we're going to look at life. It is the glasses that we put on, that we see, the lenses that we put on, that we see the world through. And it's so innate that we don't even realize we have a lens we're looking through. We don't realize we have limitations. We don't realize that our reaction to things aren't truly who we are. We believe that if somebody does or says something to us and we have a particular reaction to it, that is an honest, authentic reaction. We believe that the second that our mind comes up with a story, so there's a piece of information comes into us, our mind comes up with a story, and that story is real. That's not true. And so that's why I think this whole experience of getting to know your internal guidance system is so powerful. I haven't heard anyone out there that has this kind of information that I have about the internal guidance system that each of us are born with. And so what appears to be happening on this planet with each human that I've interacted with in training is that everyone has an internal guidance system. It shows up as a lump in the throat, a tightness in the chest, or a sick feeling in the solar plexus. Now, a few thousand years ago, we didn't have names for things like we do now, but there was a day in our history of humanity where we didn't have the word emotion. We felt things, but there was no common word, emotion, that we necessarily had. We had to decipher that, just like we didn't have the word for subconscious mind, right? It wasn't that long ago where we didn't even have the concept of a conscious and a subconscious mind, or an ego and an id, right? That came from our studies in psychology. So as we're evolving, we're learning about these things. And the new thing, I believe that's the most powerful thing to be paying attention to is the internal guidance system, this central system in our body. And this is why it's important, is your mind is a software system that is collected, and it's only based on the experience that you have. What you have experienced, and then the way that you interpreted those experiences is the way that your mind has been developed. And it doesn't have time to survive and come up with new thinking all the time. The way the mind works, the software program doing the exact same thing every single day frees you up in this small amount of time that it does free you up for to actually be able to strategize and be productive and get yourself out of trouble and kind of figure some things out. But even that is limited to a very tiny, tiny space. That's why you put your shoes on the same foot at the same time. You brush your teeth the same way every day. You eat with your fork. You don't even have to think about what it takes to cut up a piece of meat. You don't have to think about what it takes to drive. You don't have to think about what it takes to breathe and walk and blink at the same time. The whole thing about our mind is that it's very habitual. Well, that's the way it is with our reactions as well. And where we get our reactions from, okay, our culture and our upbringing between the ages of 0 and 7, that brings in the initial lens. And then as we take that lens out and we see through it and we test it, we get data about whether or not this works for us or doesn't work for us, who's a good person, who's a bad person, whether we're a good person or whether we're a bad person. But there's no way for you to question your lens you're looking through. Not really effectively, because you don't have any other experience to be able to figure it out. So lo and behold, it turns out that we're all born with an internal guidance system. And what this system is doing, apparently, I mean, I'm still in the midst of decoding all of it. I've just been teaching people. So, I have to say that the evidence that I have is based on experiential evidence. I can't wait to do more research and medical studies and bring in more people I have a podcast coming where I'll be interviewing scientists and people who are working in various areas of how this works. And I can't wait to share what I've learned and find out what they've learned and see how the puzzle comes together. But what appears to be happening is that with every thought that you have, and yes, I do mean every single thought that you have, you're being given guidance. It shows up as sensations in the center of the body, and I call them open, closed, or neutral. A closed feeling is a tight, constricted feeling. 3 areas, the throat, the chest, and the solar plex. These 3 areas mean something different. So it's the whole thing about this and decoding it is we're all feeling the sensation. We've labeled the sensation worry, fear, anxiety, overwhelm, impatience, frustration, defensiveness. I could go on and on with the list. We over the course of our history, when we feel that, we've brought our emotions down to a very nuanced experience. And in that nuanced experience, we gave way to us naming things. But the truth of the matter is that in those things that I just named, you're always closed. And in that closing, that means that you've hit upon a pattern in your mind that no longer works for you, or that is not true, or the thought that you're having is actually not going to happen. And so the way I've seen it happen is we get encoded with stress themes. They're the thing that always stresses us out. An example for that for me was my mom was a rageaholic. When my mom would come home from work, if the house wasn't clean, she would rage. Sometimes it would get physical when I was younger, not when I was older and big enough to take her on myself. We did have that moment once where it's like, you're not hitting me no more, baby. But also in that is I learned that the house needed to be kept clean to be safe. And so as I moved out into my world and started having roommates and things, I became quite agitated and irritated if they would not tidy up after themselves in a way that's like overly upset. And it was because I was triggering a stress theme, right? Now, all of us have stress themes. For some people, it's that people are mad at them and they're constantly scanning, looking for where there's somebody who's going to be angry or what could happen that somebody could be angry. Other people are, if somebody doesn't text them back, they freak out. Other people are about a bill that comes in. Even if they have the money, they're scared to spend money. They witness the culture of their family being terrified to spend money. They're miserly. And so they either become stressed out about spending money or they become stressed out about saving money. I mean, all of our lenses are different. If you go past the stress theme, we get into the territory of stress defenses. I'm going to bring this all back around to why this is so important to our world today. All of us have these stress themes and we're not aware of them. We just think it's who we are. We think of them as our preferences, but they were encoded in us when we were younger. And our unique personality created the way that we handle them, that moves us into the stress defenses. Now, stress defenses are the things that you do to protect yourself from that. So when I had the stress theme of my house is not clean and my roommates are making messes, my stress defense was to become the martyr. Other people's stress defense is to become the people pleaser. If I take on everybody's work, then they're going to like me. They're going to be nice to me. They're going to owe me, right? Other people's are the big F you. I don't care what people think. Get out of my face. Like their stress defense is completely annihilating anyone around them. Other people is isolating and hiding. If there's a big stress going on, they have a tendency to take more naps, stay home, hide from everybody, not answer the phone, not engage. All of these things are listed in the Stress to Happiness program that I use for training people. So you can discover your own stress themes and your own stress defenses. Because here's the thing, your stress themes and your stress defenses, these are your triggers, your knee-jerk reactions. Not all of them are unpleasant. Some of them are pleasant. There's things like if somebody says attaboy, or you did a good job, or in some way compliments you, then all of a sudden you're puffed up. That can be used against you too by the right con person, right? But my point is this, is those stress themes and stress defenses, the ones that are causing us suffering, the ones that are causing us to be not intimate with the people in our lives, the ones that are causing us to not feel great about who we are or believe in ourselves or think that we're good enough, they were put upon us. It's not naturally who you are. And in that being put upon you and you going out like a pinball machine, interacting with the world around you, you think that you're just being you, but in reality, you're not. And each time that you are in a situation where you're not being authentically who you are, you'll feel the tightness inside. And it will show up with like frustration or irritation or defensiveness or impatience. It'll show up like that. But the truth of the matter is your IGS, internal guidance system, IGS, is closed. And what that means is that what you're thinking is not you. It's out of alignment with who you are. And until you've actually sat down and done some of the work where you catch the closing thought, you analyze it with the tools that I give you, and then you have them shift to where this suddenly releases and you're like, oh, that's opening. That's the thought for me. That's the authentic thought in this particular moment. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the internal guidance system is it helps you create new thinking. Healthy, new, inspired thinking is what I call the hints that I use to teach people. And that healthy new thinking gets you out of the programming from your youth and back into what's truly you. And when you hit a stress defense, that means you went past a stress theme that was supposed to be reworked, eliminated. Those stress themes about money, about love, about your health, about how you look, about whether you're amazing, about what's happening in the world, whether you're safe in the world, whether you're not, all of it, what's going on with your kids, those all begin to be deprogrammed, and you become happier and happier and more centered, and you feel more and more like yourself, and life works out more and more because you were born to be you, not what everybody told you you had to be. Now, how does this relate to like the bigger picture at large? Well, we're all running around out there with our stress themes and our stress defenses. Some of us have more power than others, so we can do more damage than others. And we're causing chaos in the world. And the problem is that the chaos is not based on anything factual or true because it's coming from a closing. Closing thoughts are not true, or the thing you're thinking is not going to happen. But that's not what we know now because most people don't have the internal guidance system and they don't understand how to use it. And they can't go, oh, I hit upon a tripwire of a thought that's not true for me and it's going to mess up my life if I keep thinking this way. Or I'm not going to have the joy and happiness I want if I keep thinking this way. That's not what happens. We feel it. And most people, since they don't know what that feeling is, they begin to take action to protect themselves. They begin to take action to stop that person outside of themselves who they think is hurting them or causing a problem in the world, or going to do something dire, or the money's going to fall away because you feel this tight feeling inside about this person trying to sell you something. So you decide not to buy it because you feel bad inside. And it's the exact opposite. It was the investment for you. But your fear and your programming about spending money or trusting people is coming up. That's what the closing is. And it won't let you move forward things that are really important with actual endeavors that you're supposed to be engaging in, with people that you're supposed to be with, or people that you're not supposed to be with anymore. You're supposed to clear out of your life. risks that you want to take, but you don't believe that you have the ability, the guts, the smarts, the capacity for it. And so as you take this out bigger and bigger and bigger out into the world, what happens is we begin to interact in those pinballs that are bouncing around with all these false premises. We get to bang up against one another and causing pain, cause war, cause sneakiness, deception. A person trying to get one over on the other person. I've got to get mine. There isn't enough in the world. It's all coming from mental fear and this old programming and us not being our authentic selves. The good news is you have a free system that you can use. Keep watching these shows, look through the rest of the YouTube channel videos that I've done. If you're on Instagram or LinkedIn, there's plenty of content on YouTube to look at to learn how to do this, putting out more every single day. But the point is that as you begin to dewire, these tripwires inside of you, you come home and your spouse says something and you immediately get up in arms. You were fine until you hit that tripwire of old programming that you picked up, and that lens isn't serving you anymore and you're closed. But you don't know that. So you wander around the rest of your night, upset, ruminating over what they said, ruining your relationship and your capacity to be able to be with them and be intimate and be loving, all over this false thing that you don't realize is false. If we can go in and we can each do our work and change from a closing to an opening state over and over again throughout our day, it happens very fast. Once you start working with the neural pathways of the mind, things happen very quickly. Then what we'll be able to do is we won't be ping-ponging off each other anymore. And here's the other piece about this. This is attached to a divine intelligence. It's been the thing for years that I've been in quandary about myself, because this internal guidance system is attached to you and your life, and your thinking is unique to you, but it's universal throughout all of us. And it knows things that there's no way that your mind does not know these things. There's no way it could even guess. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have today as individuals is we're trying to figure out how to run our lives. We're trying to figure out what to do. We're trying to figure out how to make the best decisions. But our mind breaks everything down to 2 or 3 decisions. It's black, white, or gray. I cannot tell you the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people I've worked with who've come in with a very dire experience that's happening in their lives. And they say, I have to make a decision by Monday. And I go, do you? Does that open you? And they'll check in and they're closed. They're like, but I'm getting letters and this is happening and that's happening. And here's my 2 choices. Does it open you that you only have 2 choices? And they're like, no, I'm closed. And that's not true. You only have 2 choices. And as we begin to work through the openings, this divine intelligence leads us to a solution they'd never thought of. They'd never thought of. I had one couple who were looking at having a baby. They'd never thought of actually having a surrogate. And as they were strategizing through it, they ended up opening to getting surrogacy for themselves. And it turns out an aunt was willing to do it, close family member. It all turned out to be beautiful. They'd never thought of it. I had an attorney who I was working with who was trying to what felt like he was at the time to get married. And he was trying to decide where to buy a house and where to find a girl to marry. But he wasn't fired up about it. He was closed every time he was talking about it, which means the thought he had that was his next step is not true. But in his world, he's 34 years old. It's time to have a wife and kids and settle down. Turns out that as I was coaching him, he turned out to be an artist. He comes coming into our session one day, talking about how amazing was the art walk at Sausalito in California. And it was wonderful. And I've never seen him so fired up. And he said, you know, what I really wanted to do was be an artist. I said, why did you end up being an attorney? My dad was an attorney. His dad was an attorney, and so on and so on. And then they become judges, and I will become a judge. I said, that's not what you want. This is the most fired up you've ever been. I said, at least take a couple art classes. He ended up taking a couple art classes. He ended up in Paris on a field trip kind of art class thing, fell in love with Paris, moved there, found his bride, woman of his dreams, and he's still there as far as I know. We lost touch. But he was trying to decide, where should I live in Marin County and where should I find somebody to marry? And neither of those things were in his trajectory as his perfect path. I've had multiple people come in with an idea about what their career is going to be, or that they have to do this thing and make an X amount of money before they could go do the thing they love. And the IGS guided them through this divine intelligence out of those closing thoughts into an opening of exactly where they're supposed to be. I've had people take their money out of, I myself took all of my money out of the market before 2008 crash. It was crazy. Everybody told me it was wrong. I shouldn't do it. You don't touch that, your IRA. I just pulled it out and left it in the institution, but I didn't have it in anything and I didn't lose any money. My IGS opened. It will go against the grain so many times. And the thing to know is that you're already going against the grain when you're in your closing. You cannot tell me it feels comfortable when you're in worry, fear, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration. All of that is not who you are. You can't sit and count to 10 when you're completely frustrated and impatient with your kid and do anything. It doesn't do anything except calm you down for a second until you get back in there and the trigger happens again. You didn't reprogram your mind. And so the key is I'm going to give you a practice today. We haven't had anybody come in for coaching. Let me check our comments too. I'm going to finish up today with a really short little thing for you. Whenever you feel the tightness, I want you to play with this for me and share this with friends, this exercise, because this is what's actually going to change the world. This is what changes people's lives. This is what creates happiness. I'm not kidding. This is what creates happiness. This is what creates joy. This is what creates success. This thing I'm about to teach you right now in this moment. Right? I want you to think of something that's stressing you out, a specific thing, and hold the thought, I am closed. That means what I'm thinking is not true or not going to happen. Notice the tightness and the stress, and notice if you get a little slight open feeling. If you did, you might have to sit for a second and do this without me. I'm running through this kind of quick. If you did go from a tightness to a slight, even a smallest amount of relief, you just felt your internal guidance system consciously. It's been happening your entire life, but you just actually did it consciously. You chose a conscious thought and paid attention to what the guidance was. That's miraculous. That's the first step. There's so much more to it than this. You get to a place where you're actually being led from this place. Literally, you can feel the pull to go to do. You're already having this experience. You've had this experience when you kept feeling like calling somebody. Got to call my mom. You can feel I got to call my mom, or you feel like you need to go somewhere. I ran into somebody 2 days ago, and she was compelled to go to the store and do this particular thing, and she bumped into me, and she really needed support. I don't even know her. It's just I felt the opening to sit and be with her for a minute. And then I said, is she okay? And she started spilling the story. And I said, well, this isn't going to work. We need to get you some support. But it's those pulling that creates the purposes of our lives. It's the pulling that brings us back into harmony in our world. This is not woo-woo. This is not woo-woo. This is very practical and specific. And the hardest part is learning how to work with your mind, because your mind is the crazy one, not you, the programming in your mind. And that programming, there's push buttons always happening all around you with various media sources and situations and stories and things that are going on to push the buttons of our cultural fears to make us distracted and crazy. And you don't have to be distracted and crazy anymore. So this is your homework from this particular episode. Every time this week that you feel that tight sensation, when you feel like your lump in your throat, or that tightness, or that icky feeling here, when you get frustrated, when you're overwhelmed, when you're worried, when you're in guilt, when somebody says something you feel defensive, and procrastination is another one. There's a whole bunch of them. Irritation, fear, worry, anxiety, all of it. Stop. Notice the tightness and say, I'm closed. Say this exact phrase. I am closed. That means what I'm thinking is not true or not going to happen. I've taught thousands of people. This is the first step. You'll notice a slight opening, a slight release, and go, okay. You don't have to believe the statement. There's tons of things out there that you believe are true and are not true. Your IGS will actually clear all of the stuff that's lies and not true, all the deception, anything that's going on with yourself, with other people, with your business, with your capacity to make money, with your health, with whatever it is. It'll slowly clear the closings out and get you right into a place where you're authentic and back in the opening if you let it. And this is the first step. And just notice in the next few days how your level of stress and worry and anxiety and overwhelm begin to change. Notice the freedom you begin to have as you start to realize that this experience of suffering, of being pressured, of being pushed, of not being good enough, of not getting enough done, of all of that, the experience of that suffering begins to be released and relieved. Notice how you begin to go, interesting. I am in charge of my thoughts. And if I cultivate my thoughts, I am in charge of how good I feel. Always. I've had so much trauma in my childhood and my adult life that has been healed by this. I have gone through things like my brother disappearing and dying. I've gone through breast cancer. I've been through my mother dying suddenly. I can go on. I have so many things. And in the midst of that experience of trauma and pain and heartache, I was able to stay open and feel centered and be in the richness of the human experience, not in the weakness and the powerlessness of suffering. They're different. It's not always about this IGS leads you to everything's going to be perfect and rosy. It's not unicorns and rainbows. It's real life being handled beautifully by your authentic self, experiencing it and feeling it and understanding it from a completely new dynamic, from a place of divine intelligence, from a place of who you are authentically, because who you are authentically has been covered up by all this other stuff, and your power has been dimmed. Your gifts are dimmed. There is absolutely no other way to say it. And when you pull all the closing thoughts and beliefs and lies and deceptions away, and you start living into the opening where you feel physically open, the authentic you who's here to make a difference and that only you can make begins to emerge. I personally think this is one of the most extraordinary discoveries in our entire human species. And I know that sounds really crazy, because it's crazy for me to even say it, because it took years for me to even think that way, because I decoded it. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I didn't create this. God did. God gave us this to get out of this mess we're in. I just decoded it and I'm blown away by it, because it works. Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you hate. You can dig at that hate and the closing of the hate and get through it to compassion and love and empathy. That's what we need in the war-torn areas of the world. That's what we need in our family units where we're creating trauma that's causing addiction. That's the kind of thinking and the kind of newness and the way of moving through this and to get healing. And you're born with it. You just got to learn how to use it. So do the practice. We don't have anybody here for coaching, so I'm going to go ahead and today's my anniversary. I'm all dressed up. We're going to go out to dinner. So do the homework for this week. Until I see you, I'll be back at 8 o'clock in the morning, Pacific Standard Time on Thursday with another live streaming. Notice that this powerful thing exists, and then we'll show you the next thing. Because once you learn how to use it, you get your power back. Doesn't matter what's happening, no matter who or how bad or how awful somebody is. You keep doing the practices and you'll move through it and get back to peace. They won't be able to affect you like that anymore. All right. I'm sending you love and blessings. Thanks for being here and listening today. Turn people on to the fear-free movement, please. Fear-free human is a real thing. I have a vision that in 1,000 years, we can end mental fear, the suffering that's caused, and we can eradicate it from our human species. And with it, the wars, with it, the conflict, with it, the childhood trauma, with it, the unfulfilled relationships, with it, the othering of everything. We other everything in our lives. With it, all of that can go. That's what the mental fear and eradicating it will do, is it'll get rid of all that and so much more. So if you're interested and you want to learn more, I've got the Recreating You game. Go to the recreatingyou.game.com. We have a new game starting tomorrow. Looks like we're going to be starting them every Monday, actually, moving forward, which is going to be interesting. We've decided that it's the number one way to get, fastest way we could get people using their IGS in 5 days. Super easy to do. You'll be blown away by what it is, and you'll get to work with me on coaching calls inside of it. So go check it out, the recreatingyou.game.com. All right, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm sending you love and blessings.